Hello Year 9, this is Mrs. Brand.
And Ms. Riegler.
And we're here to tell you about Child Development and Care Technical Award, which is one of the options that you can choose for your GCSEs. Up on the screen now, we have got the content areas which we study in child development and care. I think it's really important to note that whilst we do look at child development and factors which influence the child's development in content areas 1 and 2, the main focus is the care sector. So nurseries, preschools, working as an early years practitioner.
Okay, so some of the content areas we look at are on development and milestones and the factors that influence a child's development. For example, is it nature or is it nurture? Are we born with it or is it something that we develop as we age? We carry on, we do look at some legislation, policies and procedures in the early years, the expectations of a practitioner, and the importance of how we observe children so that we can then plan to make sure that they are learning in a child-centred approach when we are in an early years setting.
So how do we study? We use lots of hands-on games and tasks so that you can understand how that would benefit a child's development. So one of the first things you might do is make paper bag puppets so that you can explore different types of play. We also use case studies where we look at a child and a particular scenario to think about their development, etc. All of our work is done in booklets that's not got all the information in it. They are your responsibility to fill them in using the lessons, SharePoint and your experiences, and homework will be revision based on that week's learning. In terms of assessment, there is a non-examined assessment for child development and care, which is worth 50%. This is called an NEA. You have 14 hours to complete 6 tasks around a particular case study, and it assesses all of the content areas that you were taught in year 10. That will take place in the January of year 11. There's also an examined assessment, which is done at the end of year 11 with all of your other exams, which is worth 50% of your final grade.
Okay, so why would you opt to do child development and where do you think it could lead you? So if you've got an interest in children and how children develop and how we care for children, it might be that you want to have a career in the early years sector or the health and social care sector. You might want to be a primary school teacher. It might just be that you want to have children in the future of your own. And it might be that you already have younger siblings, so you've got some hands-on experience already. You don't need to have that hands-on experience for you to do this course. It might be also that once you've done this at level 2, that you think about going on to sixth form or another college where you can do a level 3 in health and social care or in child development. And it might be also that you go and do an apprenticeship as an early years educator.
I think it's really important to note that with the government's recent introduction of funding for children from the age of 9 months, where they get a number of free hours in a nursery or a preschool from 9 months old, there is now a huge demand for early years practitioners. So this could be a stepping stone for you for potentially a career in the early years sector, or to go on and do, like Miss Riegler said, one of those level 3 courses that might take you there in a different route. Here, I've just got a quote from one of my year 11s from last year who said, "I find child development really interesting and fun. You get to play children's games, but you still learn from them. All the sheets are printed out, so it makes it easier to make notes." So there's some positives there from a student who's already taking it.
Okay, so you asked your year 11s what they would want year 9s to know.
So I asked my year 11s and they said the following. So the NEA is long, 14 hours. Obviously not done all in one go. It's going to be done over 4 days, but there are minimal notes. So you get to take or prepare 4 sides of A4 before you go in, which is done in lesson time. You get 2 hours to do that. And then you start the NEA, which is 14 hours. There is a lot of exam technique to remember. The exam itself is an hour and a half. There are multiple choice questions. There are define a word questions. But there's also 9-mark essay questions, which will require you to recall some knowledge. And they wanted me to tell you that there is lots of writing. It's not all play. There is play where it's relevant and where it's needed. but there is still lots of writing in those booklets. They also said they found content area 5 really hard, which is all about legislation, policies, procedures, where you'll look at things like the Health and Safety Act, the Equality Act, GDPR, etc. So just be aware that there will be stuff that you just have to learn and you have to know, and that one's quite complicated. And the other thing just to note is that the grading system is different from your other GCSEs. We have level 1, pass, merit and distinction. We're not interested in that. We are interested in level 2, pass, merit, distinction or distinction star. So your target or your indicator will be from level 2 up.
So what we'd really like to be able to offer you also is that we have speakers come in and talk to you, and that might be someone who works as a childminder, someone who works in a nursery, somebody who is an inspector, or it could be someone that is a parent.
I've got someone who I'd love to come and talk to you. She's a Norland nanny. Norland nannies work for the royal family, so she's done extensive training. We're also really lucky that Miss Riegler has worked in the early years sector. She's been the manager of a private nursery, so she's got a wealth of experience working, with the stuff that she'd be teaching you. And for me, I have a 4.5-year-old, and this course is 0 to 5. So I've been developing my own child, and we both will use lots of anecdotes about our experiences from a parent's point of view and from working in the early years sector, which I think is really valuable. And lastly, this is something that we're really hoping that we can roll out, is the Flower Babies project. Now, this is typically done for different reasons, but we kind of wanted you to have an opportunity that you could practice what we've been teaching you. So we would probably make a baby from a bag of flour. Trust me, we'll explain all if we get there. And you would then look after it for a period of time, keep a diary of what you do. And it's just really good hands-on experience for what it might be like to have the responsibility for a small child, be that your own or like working in an early years environment. So I think we're hopeful that we'll have time for our current year 10s to undertake this and obviously do that the following year as well. If you have got any questions, then feel free to ask myself, Mrs. Brand, or
Ms. Riegler,
in normal lessons that you might see us in, etc. Drop us an email, but we're really looking forward to seeing who picks it this year.
Amazing.